You earn money every month. Still, you feel stuck. Your income goes up, but your savings don't grow. You work harder, yet your stress remains the same. The issue isn't how much you earn, it's how you think about money. This book changes that pattern. In the next few minutes, you'll learn why smart people often make poor financial choices, why saving feels difficult, and how small changes in behavior can create lasting wealth. If you apply these ideas, your relationship with money will improve. Lesson 1. No one is crazy. Admit this to yourself honestly. Did you ever see someone making a purchase that doesn't make any sense to you at all? It could have been your workmate buying an expensive toy they will use just once, or your cousin rejecting an offer to invest anything after years of keeping those funds idling, or your friend who has a good job yet struggles to make ends meet month after month. At this point, what went through your mind? Probably some sort of statement like, "How can this individual be this irresponsible?" What does Morgan Housel tell you? The answer is simple. This individual isn't irresponsible, nor is he or she a fool. This individual simply reacts in a very different environment from yours, as do you. Think of a large circle, and somewhere near its edge, there's a small dot. The circle represents everything there is to know about a subject, while the dot represents your own personal experiences. That tiny dot is you. It includes everything you've seen, felt, and gone through when it comes to money. But the circle is much bigger. It reflects how money works across different people, time periods, and situations. Your experiences are real and important, but they're only a small piece of the bigger picture, not even close to the whole story. The issue is that your brain doesn't naturally see it that way. It treats your limited experiences as if they represent the entire circle. From that, it builds your beliefs, instincts, and financial habits, and then applies them to situations far beyond what you've actually lived through. This isn't a personal flaw. It's simply how the human mind operates. And it's a big reason why people often see money so differently and end up disagreeing about it. Imagine growing up in a home where money was always tight. Your parents worried about rent, counted every coin at the grocery store, and sometimes had to borrow just to get by. Without realizing it, you picked up a simple message. Money is limited, and it's something to be careful, even fearful, about. That mindset sticks. As an adult, risk feels uncomfortable, saving feels like protection, and spending often comes with guilt. Now picture the opposite. You grew up in a household where money wasn't a constant worry. Investments were normal dinner table conversations. Your parents took smart risks, and things often worked out. From that, you learned a very different lesson. Money can grow, the future can be trusted, and taking calculated risks is okay. Debt doesn't feel scary, it feels like a tool. Neither perspective is wrong. They're just different outcomes of different experiences. The real issue begins when you judge your own financial behavior without understanding where it comes from. You might call yourself too cautious or too reckless, but rarely stop to ask, why do I think this way about money in the first place? A few things you can do right now. Start looking at your financial decisions in context. Your past plays a bigger role than you think. Be less quick to judge how others handle money. You haven't lived their life. Take some time to reflect on your own story. What's your earliest memory of money, and what did it teach you? That one insight can explain a lot about how you behave today. This idea sits at the core of everything else. Overspending, avoiding investments, panicking during market drops. These aren't random mistakes. They're rooted in beliefs you formed early on, often before you were even aware of it. You're not irrational. You've just been shaped by your experiences. Key idea. If you grew up around scarcity, you tend to avoid risk. If you grew up around abundance, you're more comfortable taking bold steps. Your financial habits are deeply tied to your past. What you can do. Stop being harsh on your past decisions. Try to understand where others are coming from. Write down your own money story. Notice one belief you follow without ever questioning it. Lesson 2. Luck and risk go hand in hand. People love stories about self-made success, the kind where someone works hard, makes smart moves, and builds something incredible. But what those stories often leave out is how much luck played a role. Take Bill Gates. He's undeniably brilliant, but he also happened to go to one of the few schools in the world that had a computer back in 1968. That wasn't skill. That was timing and luck. If you remove that one detail, his story could look very different. Success isn't just about talent. It's usually a mix of skill, timing, and luck. And on the flip side, many talented people fail not because they lacked ability, but because things didn't line up for them. For every person who wins big on a bold decision, there are many others who made the exact same move at the wrong time and lost. Same strategy, different outcome. The difference? Luck. Luck and risk are really two sides of the same coin. When things go your way, you tend to call it skill. When they don't, you call it failure. But in reality, both outcomes are influenced by factors outside your control. This can take a toll emotionally. People often take failure personally, replaying their decisions and thinking something is wrong with them. But sometimes, it's not about what you did. It's about when you did it, or what was happening around you. The same applies to success. If you credit everything to your own brilliance, it's easy to become overconfident. But markets shift, conditions change, and luck doesn't last forever. Ignoring that is usually when things start to fall apart. A few things to keep in mind. Success should make you humble. Recognize what was in your control and what wasn't. Failure deserves some understanding. Don't judge yourself only by the outcome. Focus on managing risk. You can't control luck, but you can limit how much it can hurt you. Key idea: you can't separate luck from outcomes. Example: one founder builds a company at the perfect time and succeeds. Another builds a similar company at the wrong time and fails. What you can do: don't assume success is only about skill. Don't define yourself by failure. Pay attention to risk. Accept that some things will always be out of your hands. Lesson 3. Everything has a cost. In one episode of The Office, Michael and Stanley spend hours waiting in line for a free pretzel. Stanley works in sales, so his time literally translates into money. By standing there all day, he likely gave up more in earnings than the pretzel was worth. But because the pretzel was free, it felt like a win. That's how a lot of people approach money decisions. We focus on what's obvious and ignore what's hidden. For example, the real cost of buying a house isn't just the mortgage, it's the flexibility you give up. And chasing higher returns doesn't just come with the risk of losing money, it also brings stress and uncertainty. The truth is, every financial decision comes with more than just a price tag. There's also the cost of your time, your energy, and the opportunities you pass up. Even if they don't show up on a bill, those costs are real. So instead of just asking, "How much does this cost?" it's better to ask, "What is this going to cost me overall?" Key idea: every decision has two types of costs: the visible one, money, and the hidden ones, time, energy, and attention. Most people only think about the first. Example: if you spend hours to save a small amount of money, but your time is worth more than what you saved, you've actually lost out. What you can do: think about decisions in terms of time, not just money. Ask yourself what you're giving up in return. Focus your efforts on things that create the most value. Lesson 4. Compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Warren Buffett made his first investment when he was just 11 years old, and today he's worth over $100 billion. But here's the part most people miss. About 97% of that wealth came after he turned 65. It's not just that he was a great investor. There are plenty of skilled investors out there. What really set him apart is that he stayed invested for a very long time. That's the power of compounding. Think of it like this. If one person passes something on to two people, and each of them passes it on to two more, it spreads incredibly fast. In just a few steps, it can reach millions. Money grows similarly. At the beginning, it doesn't feel like much is happening. You might invest for years and barely see any progress. But if you stick with it long enough, the growth starts to accelerate, and the results can become huge over time. The problem is, most people give up during that slow, uneventful phase. The ones who stay patient are usually the ones who benefit the most. The key is simple. Start as early as you can, stay consistent, and don't interrupt the process. What you can do. Start investing as early as possible. Be consistent with your contributions. Avoid constantly changing your strategy. Think long-term, not short-term. Rule: stay invested and give your money time to grow. Lesson 5. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are different skills. As your income increases, your spending tends to rise along with it, sometimes even faster. Someone earning $50,000 and spending $40,000 is building wealth. But someone earning $500,000 and spending $510,000 is quietly going broke. You see this pattern all the time. People who come into large amounts of money, athletes, lottery winners, entrepreneurs after a big payout, often end up losing it within a few years. The reason is straightforward. Earning money and keeping money require completely different mindsets. The same behaviors that help you grow wealth, taking risks, investing aggressively, chasing big opportunities, can actually work against you once you already have it. You get a raise. Your lifestyle upgrades even faster. And before long, you realize you're not saving anything at all. What you can do. Keep your expenses under control, even as your income grows. Track where your money goes each month. Decide on a fixed percentage to save and stick to it. Lesson 6. The value of the long tail. Venture capital firms invest in dozens of startups, fully aware that most of them will fail. It's not because they're bad at choosing companies. It's because they understand how returns really work. It's also important to choose a level of risk that works for you. Don't copy what others are doing. Go with an approach you're comfortable sticking to, because a plan you abandon in panic is worse than a safer one you follow consistently for years. Key idea: success isn't linear. A few big wins make most of the difference. What you can do: accept that some losses are part of the process. Diversify your investments, be patient, and stay consistent. Rule: you don't need many wins, just a few that really count. Lesson 7. There are two kinds of wealth. Most people think of wealth as money, a number in the bank, a high salary, or a collection of assets. But Morgan Housel offers a different perspective. Real wealth, he says, is about freedom, the ability to do what you want, when you want, with the people you care about, for as long as you want. In that sense, time is the true currency. Someone with modest savings but full control over their schedule can be considered wealthier than someone with millions who works 80 hours a week at a job they don't enjoy for people they don't respect. So it's worth asking yourself regularly, am I earning money to create a better life, or has money itself become the end goal? What you can do. Build savings so you have more flexibility. Avoid debt that limits your choices. Make control over your time a priority. Example: someone with low expenses has the freedom to change jobs or take time off. Someone with high expenses doesn't have that same flexibility. Rule: use money as a way to gain control over your time. Lesson 8. The man in the car paradox. Imagine seeing someone drive by in a luxury sports car. What grabs your attention? You notice the car, the design, the color, the sound, the craftsmanship. What you probably don't think about is the driver. You're not sitting there admiring them as a person. But the person behind the wheel likely imagined exactly that. They pictured others looking at them and thinking, wow, that person is impressive. That's the paradox. People often buy expensive things hoping to earn admiration, but what actually gets noticed is the object, not the person. This shows up in all kinds of purchases: luxury watches, expensive homes, business class seats. A lot of the time, these choices are less about personal enjoyment and more about how they might look to others. But the impression they're trying to create usually doesn't land the way they expect. If what you really want is respect or appreciation, it turns out there are better ways to get it. Kindness and generosity leave a much stronger and longer-lasting impression than any expensive item ever could. People remember how you made them feel far more than what you owned. What you can do: spend money on things that genuinely add value to your life. Avoid buying things just to impress others. Pay attention to purchases that benefit you in the long run. Example: a luxury car might turn heads for a moment, but the cost and responsibility stay with you for years. Rule: buy things for yourself, not for approval from others. Lesson 9. Happiness is result minus expectation. If life turns out better than you expected, you feel happy. If it falls short, you feel disappointed. And the bigger the gap, the stronger the feeling. This idea applies directly to money. If someone expects a modest income and achieves it, they feel content. But if someone expects to be rich by 40 and doesn't get there, they may feel like a failure, even if they're actually doing quite well. The problem gets worse when you start comparing yourself to others. Social media makes it easy to see people showing off vacations, new homes, and expensive purchases. As you compare, your expectations keep rising. The goalpost keeps moving. A better approach is to define your own version of enough. Not in a negative or limiting way, but as a conscious decision about what a good financial life looks like for you, independent of anyone else. Once you know what you're aiming for, it becomes much easier to feel satisfied. People who do this often find that their reality meets or even exceeds their expectations. And that's where real contentment comes from. What you can do: decide what enough looks like for you. Cut down on comparisons with others. Measure your progress based on your own goals. Rule: control expectations to improve satisfaction. Lesson 10. Save like a pessimist, invest like an optimist. Morgan Housel describes this mindset as having a barbell personality, being optimistic about the long term but cautious about the short term. In practice, this means you invest with confidence in long-term growth while also preparing for setbacks along the way. Building an emergency fund isn't being negative. It's what protects you from making bad decisions, like selling your investments at the worst possible time because you suddenly need cash. Many people who struggled during financial crises didn't necessarily make bad investments. They simply didn't have a safety net. When things went wrong, they panicked or were forced to sell at a loss. The goal is simple: protect yourself from the downside, believe in the upside, and stay in the game long enough for it to work in your favor. What you can do: build an emergency fund that covers about 6 months of expenses. Invest consistently with a long-term mindset. Avoid reacting emotionally when markets drop. Example: when markets fall, people without savings often sell at a loss. Those with a financial cushion can stay invested and recover over time. Rule: balance caution with growth. These 10 lessons from Morgan Housel's book share a single underlying truth. Your relationship with money is shaped more by psychology than by math. Understanding why you feel and behave the way you do around money is the first step toward changing the outcomes you get.